仲間だよな。もちろんさ。ソフト&ウェット。
Soft and Wet is probably one of the most versatile stands in Jojo. First of all, the stand is a formidable combatant, especially in the hands of Gappy, who can definitely throw hands. Soft and Wet can release bubbles that can grab and lift any object, or cushion individuals from attacks. When they pop, they're capable of creating a small degree of damage. The stand can plunder the properties of any object like friction, sound, and moisture, to name a few, and it can achieve a variety of tasks. Its evolved form Go Beyond can fire a bubble that almost doesn't exist and can erase anything it touches. But I pretty much already explained that on maybe 4 different occasions. There's an interesting thing I've noticed in the JoJo community. Some people believe the Soft and Wet is probably the strongest stand in the series. It could potentially win against the heavy hitters in the verse. So let's put that to the test, shall we? Let's see if Gappy and his stand Soft and Wet Go Beyond can solo the entire JoJo universe. In a battle with other close-range power stands, there's a 50-50 chance of the stand's victory. Up against stands of similar power like Old Experience and Sticky Fingers, I actually think Gappy has the edge. This was mostly because he's shown himself to be a little skilled at hand-to-hand combat. That would extend to his stand. An example is him fending off 2 different skilled stand users at the same time. But against stands like Star Platinum and Crazy Diamond, Gappy is screwed in a fist fight, as both stands have massively higher strength stats, resulting in Soft and Wet getting overwhelmed. However, Soft and Wet's bubbles would change the tides. Since the bubbles can steal properties, Gappy can steal his opponent's eyesight to blind them, hindering their ability to fight properly. The bubbles can explode objects towards the stand users, potentially hindering their ability to fight even more. When it comes to stands with immense speed feats like Silver Chariot, Gappy would run into some trouble. He has after all never fought stands on this level before. But at the very least, he can seal the friction of the ground, making stands like Silver Chariot slip and giving Soft and Wet the opportunity to pummel them freely. Among stands with elemental abilities like Magician's Red and White Album, Gappy could steal the air surrounding their stands, thus eliminating the medium in which their elements can travel. Purple Haze would be a lot more difficult, but Soft and Wet kinda looks like Mr. Clean if he was a robot. He would simply steal the dirt from Purple Haze's body, thereby gaining his friendship and loyalty. In all seriousness, Gappy could try to steal the element of the gas that makes it toxic. When face to face with stands like Grateful Dead, if Gappy can figure out how it works, he can steal ice cubes or cold temperature from somewhere else and apply it to himself. Any gun type stands Gappy would encounter would simply require him to steal the eyesight of their users, thereby making it impossible for their users to fire effectively. Any colony type stand Soft and Wet would encounter could be easily trapped within the bubbles. Maybe their capacity to explode and enter objects would be enough to completely destroy them. Metallica would be the most dangerous situation for Josuke to be caught in, but once he figures out how his ability works, he can simply steal the iron from the surrounding area, giving Metallica less options overall. Since Soft and Wet can also erase things, let's compare it to Cream and the Hand. With the Hand, its swipes would obviously be dangerous, but his user isn't exactly the smartest. He could attempt to erase the bubbles, but stealing his eyesight would be enough to achieve victory. Cream could attempt to hide in his Void Orb, but the Go Beyond bubble can possibly cross it and hurt him regardless. Even if it couldn't, stealing Ice's eyesight would ensure that he never effectively hit his targets, even when he pokes out his head. Well, what about his buddy Killer Queen and his ability to place bombs? Well, unfortunately, Gappy has no way of knowing where a bomb is placed, or how to avoid them. It's unlikely he'd be able to steal these bombs either. Gappy could get all strategic with these stands, but a lot of the time, a well-placed shot of Go Beyond can take most of them out. With close-range stands out of the way, let's discuss the long-range remote types. Sheer Heart Attack is a substandard Killer Queen, and pretty much attacks anything with a bigger heat signature, but Soft and Wet's bubbles have been shown to be able to steal temperature. If Gappy figured out how Sheer Heart Attack tracks its targets, he can use the bubbles to infuse objects with a ton of heat, and then simply erase the stand with a well-placed shot of Go Beyond. The same applies for Notorious B.I.G. The stand uses sound to track its targets, so Gappy can use his bubbles to create sounds in a different area, and then attempt to erase it. Although since the stand will keep coming back, Gappy may have to repeat this process until the stand eventually ends up in a similar situation as the end of Golden Wind. Once again, Highway Star follows similar rules, using smell instead of heat or sound. Josuke could steal his odor and place it somewhere else in order to confuse the stand, and since Gappy has experience going to hospitals, Highway Star's user may have to extend his stay once Gappy is done with him. Against Superfly, Cheap Trick, and Lovers, Gappy would definitely have some trouble with them. There's seemingly no way for him to get rid of Cheap Trick with his abilities, and it's not like he has a Ghost Alley of sorts in Morio, unless the Leaves of Shakedown Road could help. Any attacks he does to Superfly will be redirected, but Gappy could potentially attempt to steal the friction of its user, making him slip and fall, and putting him in stand barrage range. Lovers would be so microscopic that Josuke may not know that it's inside his body, but if he did, he could attempt to capture it with a tiny bubble, or erase it with a super tiny Go Beyond bubble. There are plenty of remote types I could put up against Gappy, but this video would be an hour long, so let's move on.
It's because of thin lines that they form circles so bubbles, and among them, there are ones that cannot be seen.
With Soft and Wet's ability to go beyond the laws of logic and calamity, that allows the stand to enter the realm of the strongest in the series. So let's put that to the test, shall we? First, how about the stands that can manipulate time in some way? Well, the World and Star Platinum's ability to stop time would freeze Gappy in place, and he'd have no way of perceiving what's going on in this dimension. But the thing about Go Beyond's bubble is that it would simply ignore time stop itself and continue to move uninterrupted. If Dio or Jotaro were hit in any way, that would send them flying and end time stop. The injuries created by Go Beyond could potentially kill Jotaro, but Dio would definitely survive. Regardless, if both of them survive, the novelty and surprise of Go Beyond would run out, and both Jotaro and Dio would be cautious from now on, which wouldn't be good for Gappy. Jotaro could easily dodge with Star Platinum's light speed reaction time, and Dio could just tank the damage. Same goes for King Crimson. Once the ability activates, Diavolo would be surprised by the bubble's ability to go beyond time erasure, and he would potentially be hit, maybe resulting in Gappy's victory. But if Diavolo survived or avoided the bubble, he would from now on use Epitaph to view Gappy's future actions with both bubbles. But Gappy would in fact shield himself with a wall of plunder bubbles to protect himself from some time against Diavolo, Jotaro, and Dio, but he's unfortunately screwed most of the time. For the first phase of D4C's ability, Gappy would stand a chance. He can steal Valentine's friction or eyesight to ensure he'd have a hard time wedging himself between any object. If Valentine brought his alternate universe selves, Satowa has been shown to easily fight multiple opponents at once. The real question would be how he'd avoid getting merged. Well, there's unfortunately no way for him to stop that potential outcome, but Gappy still has the capacity to stop Valentine's attempts at dimensional travel. Once D4C Love Train enters the picture, Gappy would pretty much be screwed. Its bubble would definitely go beyond Love Train's golden light and avoid being redirected. But as long as Valentine stays within the light, any and all injuries will be redirected to someone else in time. There's unfortunately nothing Soft and Wet can do against D4C Love Train. Made in Heaven would simply be too fast for Gappy to deal with. It's already hard enough for him to control Go Beyond. It would be pretty much impossible to get a hit on Pushi. But as we've seen with Emporio, if Gappy can enter a small isolated room and pump it full of oxygen, that could potentially result in a similar outcome as the end of Stone Ocean. Gappy could steal the friction from the ground or Pushi's vision to make his movements more difficult. So in a fight with Made in Heaven, it will simply come down to where the battle takes place. Gappy will once again be screwed in a fight against Tusk and its Maniacs. Act 2 and 3 would constantly keep Josuke on the move, giving him little time to counter. If Josuke stole Johnny's eyesight, we've seen that Johnny doesn't necessarily need a line of sight for his bullets to follow their opponents. Act 4 would be guaranteed death for Gappy. He wouldn't know about the infinite rotation. Once he's afflicted with it, there'd be no way to undo it. But I pretty much already made a video on this topic if you want to check it out. Soft and Wet vs Weather Report would be a pretty close battle. I'd argue that their versatility is almost on par, but I'd get the edge to Weather Report. Listen, the stand can control air, so it'd easily blow away any plunder bubbles Josuke would summon. Once heavy weather activates, Josuke would begin transforming into a snail due to not knowing how the ability works. Even if he did, resorting to Go Beyond wouldn't work out too well. It would pretty much have the same outcome as when he was infested by whatever these things are. Now for the ultimate test, how Soft and Wet Go Beyond fare against. As we all know, Gold Experience Requiem can revert all actions to 0. so in most cases, any and all plunder bubbles would be undone. Let's not forget how the bubbles of Go Beyond function. Their lines spin so fast and are so thin that they almost don't exist at all in the world, so they thereby don't follow the laws of logic. GER uses the world's logic to revert things to zero. What I'm saying is that the bubbles of Go Beyond will continue moving towards Jarno, even if Return to Zero activates. Even if Gappy is reverted, the bubbles would remain unaffected as long as they were released before GR's ability activation. So I guess that settles it. Go Beyond wins against Requiem. Well, hold your horses. Let's not forget the absolutely insane stats Gold Experience Requiem possesses. Its immeasurable speed, strength, and heavily powered up stand ability will be enough to annihilate Soft and Wet. Let's not forget that Go Beyond doesn't get a boost in stats and thus has the same low power but average attack speed as any stand. Gold Experience Requiem would achieve victory. So, would Soft and Wet Go Beyond solo the entire Jojo universe? Well, at least 80% of it. The versatile abilities of Plunder and the destructive force of Go Beyond gives many options in combat and would fare well against most foes. However, I don't agree with the notion that Go Beyond is somehow the strongest stand, because as I've explained before, against King Crimson, the World, Star Platinum, Gold Experience Requiem, D4C Love Train, and etc., they simply have all the means to counter or avoid Go Beyond, especially since Gappy can't effectively control it. It got deflected many times, and Gappy needed help and surprise attacks to defeat Toru. Go Beyond was only so effective against Wonder View because its ability could ignore the force of logic. It's not like Toru was that great of a fighter either. Soft and Wet's speed and stand ability are formidable, but I wouldn't really call them the strongest in the verse. Anyways, I understand if you disagree, so let's discuss in the comments below.
アリーベ・デルチ